I don't ever slow up, no I don't take I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
It's about a guy who got revenge years later in prison on a guy that did him wrong. And so we're at Licking, but let me back up a little bit and go to MSP. There's this guy there, he was kind of young, he's a little bit older than me, but he went around robbing people and doing different things. And you know, I didn't hang around people like that. Anyway, fast forward to Licking, and this guy comes in, and he, you know, he's an older guy and he's built, you know, and he walking around and he gets a little grip. But this one guy that I never hardly talked to, that telling me he was doing all the robbing, he said, have you spoken to that guy? And I said, no. He goes, man, I think I know who he is. And he keeps looking at me. Sometimes, you know, he goes, I think he's got something on his mind. That guy had seen us talking, and he comes to me and he goes, man, that guy's no good. Well, you know, what's it to me, you know? I said, I speak to him once in a while. Sometimes you have to deal with people, you know? Next thing I know, I guess it's about a week or so later, this guy, the one I knew at MSP, he comes up to me and he says, I know who he is, man. I said, man, why are you telling me all this stuff? I said, you know, he is saying like he knows you too, you know? You guys go talk, whatever you go out there going to do it. And he goes, man, I think he was one of the ones I robbed, you know, a long time ago. He goes, I'm gonna go talk to him. He goes, I got to find out what's going on. And so I guess they talked, I don't know. But all I know is it seemed like it was over with. But then a couple weeks later, they're out in the yard, you know, we're having a yard, there's a softball game going on, and from outside the softball game, right outside it by the fence, you know, the fence that went around the softball field, they started going at it. I mean, he did a number on the old head. I mean, both of them was messed up, but he ended up getting the best of the old head, the older guy. And that just goes to show that you do something bad to something, it could come back on you. And it did on this guy. So I didn't see him for a long time, and then I only saw one, and that was the old head, the guy in the MSP. But some guy was telling me about it. He says, yeah, he did more than just rob that guy. He goes, I remember when this happened, a young guy came in, and he was frail, you know, he's like 17. I said, frail? He goes, yeah, kind of like you were. He goes, man, you weighed 120 pounds soaking wet. It was 150 pounds soaking wet. Either way, I weighed about 150 pounds. Either way, he says, so he started robbing this dude, like he said, he, you know, told you. And, but he said they say he took his manhood too. You know, he figured, well, if I can rob him, I can take the other. I said, oh, man. He said, so that's what it was really about, you know. He goes, I would have done the same thing, you know. May not have got him then, but sooner or later, I'm going to meet up with you and get you. I said, man, just looking at that guy, he doesn't look like he could, you know, that he was small one time. He goes, well, you don't either, but you got a little size on you too. I said, yeah, but that dude it's just hard to imagine. He goes, yeah, he didn't have all those tattoos either, and And he didn't have that walk. He said he said, you know how some people come in scared and they come outside their cell and they just stand there, you know. They don't go to Shire hardly. And when they do, they try to wait till not everybody's. He goes, he was that type of person. And I said, man, it's just hard to imagine. I said, he even had a little group. He goes, well, the guy took his manhood, but he said a lot of people was calling him a boy because of that, because he let that happen. And I said, well, if he took it, there was nothing he could do about it. It's not like he coerced him into being his boy. He goes, yeah, he robbed him a couple times, took his manhood, and said he paid the price for it. And I said, well, and then a little bit later, you know, like I said, we saw him, and he's out of the hole, and he had a limp to him. He had a cane and everything. I don't know if it was from that incident or not, but you know, I'm thinking it was. He didn't speak no more. He was completely different. I mean, he's still the same person. He just didn't come out of his cell. He'd go like the Medline, and once in a while he'd go out in the yard and talk to a couple people, but other than that, he didn't do nothing. So that's one thing, and I think you can apply this out here too. If you do something to somebody in prison or out of prison, it could come back and get you, bite you. You know, you just never know. Now, like I said, the guy that all this was done to, he got a little messed up too, but in the end, he got the guy down. And the funny thing is, the staff was there, they just kind of looking at it for a minute before they got on their radios. You know, the recreation staff. So he ends up messing this guy up by the time they get him all broken up and everything. But you know, this just karma is a bee, is what they say. What goes around comes around. And I've seen other instances where it was even worse, where it was a stabbing that happened over something like that. Now, it wasn't like years later, but it, you know, maybe a couple years later or a few months or whatever. But this one was years later. Years. I mean, the guy went from a skinny guy to a built guy, tattoos all over him, and walking with confidence. You know, he's like 10 or 15 years later. Anyway, that's all I got for you, and I thank you for watching.
We are dreaming in the dark. We are nothing more than dust.